Look, if we have passport controls in Liverpool, does that matter to me? Absolutely not. The things that matter to me are so much more important than this silly debate about whether we'll have the odd border post or passport checks.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.
Look, if we have passport controls in Liverpool, does that matter to me? Absolutely not.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.
So let's hope that actually begins to work in the way that it should. There doesn't seem to be things aren't working the way that things should be working. I don't know what's happening with the StreamYard. I think it must be something to do with the software. There we go. There's it sort of kicking into place again. It must be something to do with the broadcast software this evening. People, please accept my apologies. It's unfortunate. Anyway, we're going to give this a go again. We're going to try to do what it is that we're doing. So earlier on, we were speaking about Nicola Sturgeon. We were speaking about how that it is that Sinn Féin IRA would have liaised with the SNP just a few weeks ago, and how that it is that, well, after the meeting just over a month ago with Nicola Sturgeon, with the IRA representatives, well, what happened was that the Scottish Nationalist Party, they called a non-independence referendum yesterday, and not even did they call a non-referendum, but what they did was they said it was going to be an independence referendum. What it really means is that it's a referendum for the people in Scotland to go off and to join the EU, contrary to the popular will of the people actually in Scotland. So let's hope that we can finish off the stream here, because I do see that things are working very, very slowly. It's nothing to do with the computer or anything, or the machinery that we have here. I think it must be something to do with the software that we're using that's going on the blink, because I see that things are working fairly slowly when you're trying to click things in. But Peter, what we're going to do now is that I wanted to play something share screen again, and I wanted to share the screen in a way that what will happen is that this is a video about the GAA, the sporting institution, the cross community GAA, which manages to get funding and everything else. This is a little video that someone with a Scottish voice, I think this lady suggests that she comes from Ballyclare, and if anyone knows this lady, don't put her name on the screen, but what I would like to do is that if you would send us a message in the background with contact details, if anyone knows who this is, because I really want to get in contact with this person. This is someone that has made a very informative video about the GAA, and I think that we're going to watch it, Peter, and then we'll come back and we'll give some commentary over it. So welcome back, people. I see that the numbers are actually rising before our very eyes again, and please accept my apologies, our apologies for the way that things actually happened. So there's a message there straight off from Warren Rainey. No, it's pure and simple sectarian, using terrorist names and trophy stadiums. GAA discriminate against anyone who served in the security forces. Well, Warren, you're absolutely right. And wait do you see whenever that we play this little video. I thought this video was a gem of a find, and I would love to be able to work with the people that actually done this, because they have to say the research that they put in order to make this was second to none. So again, I'm just looking for the video to be able to play as I talk. Just a few moments, please. So here we go. Here we go.
Ballyclare District Historical Memorial Association. The GAA Cups and their links to IRA terrorists. No one can imagine how it must feel to have lost a loved one, or to have been maimed, losing limbs, or living with the scars and trauma that the IRA inflicted on the Protestant community. But I find it truly abhorrent that the very people who have suffered and are still suffering to this day are being told it's time to move on, put a line under it, stop living in the past. Why should we forget the innocents that were blown up, shot, kidnapped and tortured by the IRA when the GAA and its clubs continue to laud these terrorists over everyone by naming ceremonial cups, trophies and parks after them? Most recently in February of this year, and with the Deputy First Minister in attendance, a GAA club in County Tyrone unveiled a plaque to 3 IRA volunteers who were shot by the SAS for their terrorist activities. The club's chairman, Darren Devlin, was asked questions about the planning of the plaque, who proposed it, and how it was financed, and he replied, "I'll not be commenting on anything." The Joe Cahill Under-12s Cup. This man had been sentenced to death in 1942 for his part in the gun attack against 4 RUC officers, which resulted in the murder of Constable Patrick Murphy. It was with the support of the American State Department and the Vatican that this sentence was changed to life imprisonment, only for him to be released in 1945 under an IRA ceasefire. He was one of the founders of the Provisional IRA and commander of its Belfast Brigade, the instigator in the beginning of the bombing campaigns that led to the Troubles. He was the IRA's Chief of Staff in 1972 and had dealings with the American No-Raid Group and with the Libyan leader Gaddafi in importing guns and ammunition for the IRA. He was caught importing 5 tons of weaponry, receiving only a 3-year sentence. He stated in court, "If I am guilty of any crime, it is that I did not succeed in getting the contents of the Claudia into the hands of the IRA of this country." Gerard and Martin Hart. There is a GAA Cup named after these 2 IRA volunteers. They, along with Brian Mullen, had planned to murder a part-time UDR soldier on his delivery route for work. They were armed with AK-47s, but their plan failed as SAS thwarted the attack and a shootout occurred. All 3 assailants lost their lives, but their families fought in court for compensation, claiming unlawful killing. Michael McVery. This IRA volunteer has a GAA Cup named after him. McVery was shot while planting 2 bombs at an RUC station. When a gun battle ensued, the terrorists managed to drive off, hijack a further 2 cars, set alight a customs tower before they took McVery to a hospital, but he was dead on arrival. McVery had also been part of a 6-man armed unit that had held a family hostage, beat the father and son while waiting on his other son, a part-time UDR soldier coming home from work. As the terror group left the traumatised family home, a car turned the corner and, thinking it was their target, shot into the car, killing the elderly neighbour. McVery was very easily identified as he only had one hand. The other he had blown off testing grenades. Martin Hershen. There's an annual celebration and a memorial cup in this IRA volunteer's name. He had been sentenced to 20 years for his role in the planting of 3 landmines. Jim Lockery and Sean Campbell. The Lockery-Campbell Park, named after these 2 IRA volunteers, has its grounds in Drummond Tree and an annual GAA Cup played in their honour. These two died when the bomb they were planted exploded prematurely. Campbell's brothers are also terrorists, with Michael being convicted in Lithuania for the purchase of weaponry to supply the real IRA, and Liam was identified as one of the bombers in the 1998 Omagh bombing, killing 29 people. Paddy Kelly Memorial Cup. Kelly joined the Provisional IRA in the 70s, becoming East Tyrone's brigade commander in 1985, one of the most active groups in Northern Ireland. The unit under his command targeted isolated RUC stations. In 1987, he was shot and killed along with the rest of his unit. 3 of them had driven a stolen digger carrying 400 pounds of Semtex into Loch Hall RUC barracks, whilst the others got out of their car and started shooting into the station after the bomb had exploded. The SAS, forewarned and positioned, immediately fired back, killing all 8 of the terrorists. It's hard to believe the families of the terrorists fought for compensation, with one member settling their claim out of court and all claiming unlawful killing. Mairead Farrell. A girls' camogie championship played in Tully in County Armagh was named after this IRA volunteer. She had spent 10 years in jail for planting the bomb at the Conway Hotel in Dunmurry. She was killed in 1988 by the SAS in Gibraltar, along with Sean Savage and Daniel McCann. They had planned to drive a car filled with 84 kilos of Semtex from Spain to a busy town in Gibraltar during a ceremonial changing of the guard. Their targets being the band and guard of the 1st Battalion of the Royal Anglian Regiment. The Kevin Lynch Hurling Club. The Dungiven hurling team renamed their club after this Irish Republican member of the INLA. In 1977, he was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison for conspiring to take guns from the security forces, for carrying out a punishment shooting, and for stealing shotguns. How can anyone move forward when the GAA continue to memorialise IRA murderers with absolutely no regard for the innocent civilians who were killed by their hands, for their surviving families, or the survivors of some of the worst atrocities ever carried out on innocent people?
So there you go. What a catalogue, and very, very well documented. And if anyone knows who the lady is that had done that video, I mean, we would love to perhaps have her presence here on Restore. And if we can't have her presence on Restore, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps, and work along with her and perhaps her colleagues. Let's hope that this screen doesn't start to mess about again in the way that it was actually earlier. So, Peter, just over to you, if you would just like to give your commentary on what it is that you've just seen there. I mean, in context, the GAA, they receive a lot of funding under this protocol deal that Jeffrey Donaldson will. I'm going to literally tell people what I told people last week, is that I would be privy to some information that Jeffrey Donaldson has already told some influential people in Northern Ireland that he will begin back into. Here we go again, that he will begin back into Stormont, that he will sit along with the IRA in Stormont yet again. And as part of, whenever they do go into Stormont, well, haven't the economy minister, the people attached to the GAA at Casement Park, haven't they said that there's already a fund here? The screen isn't actually operating in the way that it should do, unfortunately, people. But I think that you get the picture. I think that you get the picture of what it is that's happened. I'm going to have to do some work here in the background to try to understand what it is that's happening this evening. No, I think in all fairness, and I'm just speaking to the live chat here, is that I think it's something to do with the software that I'm using. It's never ever done this before. It's either that or something to do with the internet. And, if your internet works, well, it works fine. If your software works, it works fine. And sometimes you do get these problems. And I have to say, this is probably the first time that it's ever happened in this way. So let's try again. Let's move on, because it seems to be rectifying itself again. So as part of this deal that the DUP have in principle suggested that they support, and they will begin back into Stormont again, the criminal gang headquarters just off the Upper Newtownards Road, which is occupied by IRA terrorists. Well, the IRA terrorists, they have ensured that their plants in Stormont, well, what they will have done is that they've agreed to give upwards of 125 plus million to Casement Park GAA when the National Stadium here at Windsor Park, well, it only got sort of 28.5 million thereabouts, and Ulster Rugby, from my recollection, they got about 19 million. So a combined total of around 50 million which was what was given to Ulster Rugby and the National Stadium at Windsor Park. And how is it that GAA are getting 140 odd million from the public purse? And especially how is it that they're getting this money whenever you just seen what you just seen there, that they're a completely sectarian organization, that they glorify terrorism, that they commemorate terrorism, that they name their cups after terrorism, that they name their games after terrorism, that if it looks like a terrorist sporting organization, well, it is a terrorist sporting, supporting, commemorating organization, namely the IRA Republican terrorists. So just over to you, Peter. And if you would like to just give us your thoughts on what it is that you just heard there, and then we'll sort of try to close up because we've been having problems with the screen. Over to you, Peter.
It was quite a powerful video that lady compiled together. Very in-depth, and a fair play to her for doing it. I think society's all wrong. In Scotland, we see specific areas getting a lot of funding. If certain organisations, charities adhere to the ideology of the SNP, they get preferential treatment for funding. And that seems to be what's happening over in Northern Ireland as well when it comes to Sinn Féin and nationalist Republican groupings over there. They seem to be getting preferential treatment. How do you deal with that? I've no idea. I've no idea whatsoever, but we see it happening here in Scotland as well. SNP fund whoever they want to fund. It's best place for them. We've seen a smelter plant. We lost £560 million, I think. It's cost the taxpayer. The ferries deal was illegal. They didn't look at the proper context of that deal. It's something like 250 million we've lost there. The list goes on with the SNP. It's their bedfellows that they hand the money to. It's the same happening in Northern Ireland with Sinn Féin.
And again, what I see in that video is that I see the evidence to pursue. Now, it's not that we didn't know that this was happening, and we at Restore UK, we wanted to actually compile a video like that, but with doing lots of other things, you don't actually get the time to sit down. And aren't we glad that these people have, they've put this video together, and what we can do is that we can use the information on that to tackle our own politicians who won't get up off their knees and who won't make this fight back in a meaningful, proactive way, really drawing a line and saying that how can we share power with these people? How can we support this sectarian organization which glorifies terrorism, contrary to the terrorism laws, I would add, that are in this country. Now, here's a claim, and everybody listen to this claim very, very carefully, and let's hope that we do get this claim out, is that the Bobby Store, or the Casement Park, it's upwards of £125 million. It could be, we could be being attacked, people. We could be being attacked. Every time that we go to say something of. So here again, so very sorry to the live chat that this is the way that things have happened and occurred today. But we're going to rectify the problems, and we'll be back even stronger in the very, very near future. But again, Peter, can you hear me again? Yet again? No, we seem to be having the
Yeah, I
same
can hear
old
you, mate.
problems again. Right, so we're back again. So we are. So again, as I say, the Casement Park that are getting this upwards of 140 million, 125 plus million pounds from the Northern Ireland Executive. What's not to say that these people, these terrorist glorifying animals, that they won't actually name that stadium at a future date after Bobby's story, or they won't try to do something in honor of Bobby's story within that stadium. Now, I would bet my bottom dollar that this will actually happen once that funding is in place. And who do we lay the blame at? Which door do we lay the blame of this if it happens at? Well, I would lay the blame at the DUP's door for the very fact that they have facilitated this into place. So if Stormont is resurrected again in October, is what we believe that Jeffrey has already agreed to do. If it is resurrected come October of this year, well, in October of this year, we will have an Irish Language Commissioner, which will put in place the IRA nation building strategy, in where that what they said in their nation building strategy is that they wanted to use Irish to green Northern Ireland street by street, using that Irish language, and the commissioner will actually facilitate the circumstances into place whereby that they actually can do that. And that was a DUP delivery. That was Edwin Poots's delivery. That was Arlene Foster's delivery, and the DUP hierarchy that are in place today cannot wash their hands of that. And, so we're going to have this Irish Language Commissioner, and then we're going to have the money, the funds handed over to the Casement Park, which could at some point in the very, very near future, it could become the Bobby Story Park, or something to do with Bobby's story. Just watch this space. Do you see this actually happening? And we've seen it for ourselves there, how that it is that they glorify, they commemorate, they have like even monuments outside the GAA grounds, and we've seen it earlier on with Michelle O'Neill. We've seen her glorifying the terrorism up in County Tyrone, and that's what they do. They add insult to the injury of the victims that these IRA terrorists have actually created. And what type of a society is that to live in? What type of a society is that to permit into place? I heard it said last week, Peter, and we will close because we're having problems with the stream. But I heard it said last week that the DUP, they are against everything. They speak about everything, but they do nothing about anything. Over to you, Peter, for the last words, and then we'll try to close the stream down. We'll try to find out what it is that the problem is.
All I can really say is we feel your pain over there.
Hopefully, Peter comes and goes, John. We see, but when it does freeze, it only does for a few. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, all I can say is that.
Thanks very much for that, Thomas. Stable, yeah. Go ahead, Peter.
Can you hear me now, John?
Yes, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, all I can say is I feel your pain for you guys over there, and I'm sure you feel the pain of us over here. We're all Sinn Féin and SNP are connected. What we do about it is going to take a collective effort to try and get rid of both of them.
Yeah, and we're going to have to redouble our efforts, Peter, collectively, between ourselves, yourselves in Scotland, the people that we know in England, and the people that we know in Wales, and we're going to have to come together like we've never came together before. Because if we're going to sit back and let these people destroy the greatest union that the world has ever seen, well, our forefathers will be turning in their graves, and I say that respectfully. I really do. So, Peter, thanks very much for coming along. I'm sorry about the fact that we were having problems with the stream, but I think that people enjoyed what it was that we had to deliver. Peter, if you would just like to, give us your thoughts, for the last, just close up and talk to the live chat. liaise with the live chat and really give us your hopes, your fears, and your aspirations for the future.
I just hope that every section of unionism in Scotland could come together as a collective and start a political fight against the SNP and take them out of government. That's what I think should happen, and that's what I hope does happen.
Yeah. Peter, once again, thanks very much for coming along. And people, I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed, people, what it is that you've seen, up until this point. And very, very sorry about the fact that we did have the problems with the stream this evening. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to play us out with something just to put a smile on everyone's face. And, again, the evening. And I will ensure that what we do between now and Sunday is that we have our problems actually ironed out, whatever those problems actually are. So I'm just going to pop up the advertisement to Ben, who's coming on Sunday. And again, join us on Sunday at 7 p.m. And I will be asking Ben Habib the question, is the protocol bill a charade? And we hope to get an answer. And I know that Ben will answer that to the best of his ability and in a very, very honest way. Let's just say, and sorry about that. Again, I can't apologize enough for the problems, but beyond our control, unfortunately. So playing us out with a couple of things. Remembering what it is that how it was that we got here. And this little song that I'm about to play will actually chart the course of how that the people of Northern Ireland ended up in the position where we're in today in 2022. So let's just get this right. We're now coming into month 7. So we're now 16 months into the constitutional changing EU protocol, and seemingly no one wants to do anything about it. The protocol bill that has been talked about in the Parliament, well, all that is providing for customs checks to remain, regulatory checks to remain at Larne and Belfast and in Warrenpoint, which effectively means, people, that is the permanent lifting of the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland and placing it between Northern Ireland and England, Scotland and Wales. And your leaders, under the direction of Jeffrey Donaldson, well, they are happy to accept this. Someone once said, who are they working for? They're certainly not working for me, and they're not working for you. They're not working for British Unionism here in Northern Ireland. So playing this out, and I would encourage people to watch this little song. And what I will do is I'll pop up the PayPal link on to superimpose it over what it is that we're playing here. And if anyone can help with their work, well, click on the link and pop a few pounds into our live chat. And then once again, I apologize for the way that the stream has went this evening, but circumstances beyond our control. And wasn't Peter a breath of fresh air? And I hope that you got the meaning and the real meaning of what it meant for Nicola Sturgeon to be announcing this non-referendum yesterday in cahoots with Sinn Féin IRA. When our enemies are teaming together in order to derail our successes, well, isn't it time that we all got together in order to derail theirs? Thanks very much for coming along, and we'll speak to you all very, very soon. Thank you.
Look, if we have passport controls in Liverpool, does that matter? Look, if we have passport controls in Liverpool, does that matter to me? Absolutely not. The things that matter to me are so much more important than this silly debate about whether we'll have the odd border post or passport checks.
The greatest challenge that we face is bringing our own people with us, making peace with your friends.
Any man who is not with us is against us. When is a unionist not a unionist? When he creates disunion.
In the end, customs checks doesn't mean that you change the constitutional status of a part of the United Kingdom.
This is the most momentous election that we have ever had to face. We must elect those who would fight for the Union, not those who would oppose it.
Already we're seeing the political parties and business leaders coming together to see how we actually exploit the opportunities that may arise from this situation.
Any man who is not with us is against us.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries to see how we actually exploit the opportunities that may arise from this situation.
Any man who is not with us is against us.
The Northern Ireland Assembly is the place where every element of our society is represented. Such partnership is how we must move forward. And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.
When is a unionist not a unionist? When he creates disunion.
The sheet of paper you were given didn't show you all these different regulations on them, so it didn't even mention how many regulations there were. And when I queried that, I asked one of the DUP spads because I knew it had something to do with it, and I was given this assurance that it was keeping us in line with the rest of the United Kingdom, and there was absolutely nothing to worry about.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.
I trusted what I was told, and I made a mistake, and that's how it was sold to me, and I can only apologise.
The Northern Ireland Assembly is the place where every element of our society is represented. And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries. In August 2016, within weeks of the EU referendum, my party leader, Arlene Foster, penned a letter jointly with the then Deputy First Minister, Martin McGuinness. That letter was written to the UK Prime Minister, Theresa May. And it's worth quoting, I think, from this letter. This region is unique in that it is the only part of the UK which has a land border with an EU member state. There have been difficult issues relating to the border throughout our history and the peace process. We therefore appreciate your stated determination that the border will not become an impediment to the movement of people, goods and services.
Any man who is not with us is against us.
It was pragmatic and constructive. As then First Minister and Deputy First Minister, these two leaders were writing in the same spirit of mutual respect and common sense which enabled my party and Sinn Féin to reach agreement at St Andrews and subsequently to establish a power-sharing government.
We must elect those who will fight for the Union, not those who would oppose it.
And therefore, making peace with your enemies is important, but it can only be successful if you make peace with your friends. Thank you.
Look, if we have passport controls in Liverpool, does that matter to me? Absolutely not. The things that matter to me are so much more important than this silly debate about whether we'll have the odd border post or passport checks.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.
Look, if we have passport controls in Liverpool, does that matter to me? Absolutely not.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.